Evening. I'm Mayor Martin Horwitz, and I'd like to welcome you to our online sewer town hall, or Sewers 101. In 2020, we recorded some of the highest amounts of concentrated rainfall this city's seen in years. We also recorded the greatest number of flooding complaints in years. Based on these increasing numbers, City Council and I chose to modify our goals to make the elimination of flooded basements and streets one of our top priorities. Tonight, we're going to review our progress and our future plans. We'll start with a brief introduction to basic storm and sanitary line operations. Then we'll talk about the work the county has done to maintain the lines in our city. Then we'll explain the methodology used to develop a 5-year capital improvement plan and the many projects that are currently underway or planned for the future. At the end of this program, we will leave time for questions and answers. Joining us to explain all of these moving parts are 3 experts who have worked with the city of Beachwood for many years. We have Chris Arrieta, who's been with the city for over 30 years in our Public Works Department, and he's the current Public Works Director. We have Joe Chuney, who's been the Beachwood City Engineer since 1995. He's a registered professional engineer with 40 years of municipal engineering experience and head of the GPD group, municipal group division. And we have David DeCesar. He's the project manager in the water practice department at GPD. David's also a professional engineer and a certified sewer manhole and lateral assessment professional. So I will turn this over to David to get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start sharing my screen. For the presentation here. So welcome everyone to the online sewer town hall meeting tonight. As the mayor talked about, we're going to have an introduction into the sewer system and what the city, the county, and the sewer district has done, and talk about what the future is going to hold. So here we actually have some pictures from our recent project that was completed on Glen Hill. There's a storm sewer project, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Here's the agenda for tonight. We went over some of the introductions, Sewers 101, the historical work that the city, the county, and the sewer district has done, and then the 5-year capital improvement plan. And then, like you said, we'll have a question and answer session. So Sewers 101, kind of want to talk about the responsibilities of the sewer system. So on the back of the sidewalk is what's known as the right-of-way line or the property line. From the back of the sidewalk to the street is public infrastructure, and from the back of the sidewalk to the house is the private side. So there are storm sewers and sanitary sewers that the city maintains, that the catch basins will go to the storm sewer, and any of the rainwater from your gutters, downspouts, and foundation drains go through your storm lateral and tie into the public storm sewer. On the sanitary side, you have wastewater from your bathtubs, toilets, sinks, that will go through the sanitary lateral into the public sanitary sewer system. There are test tees that are located within in the yard, which are used for cleaning operations and also televising your laterals. What happens for flooded issues is that in a properly connected system, you can see that the roof, the foundation drain, and the catch basin are all connected to the storm sewer, and then you have the sanitary lateral connected to the sanitary system. When you have inflow and infiltration, otherwise known as I&I, you have cross-connected foundation drains, you have uncapped cleanouts, so surface water can get into those test tee cleanouts. You could have broken sewer laterals. You could have root intrusion from trees that get into the joints. You could have storm cross connections if a catch basin is improperly connected to the storm sewer instead of the sanitary sewer, or sorry, if it's connected to the sanitary sewer instead of the storm sewer. You could have cracks in the manholes, cracks in the mainline pipe as well. When this happens, and there's an influx of stormwater that gets into the sanitary system, that's what causes the basement flooding. And specifically on the private side, a lot of testing is being done to show where the downspouts are illicitly connected to the sanitary lateral, or if there is issues with the laterals that show there's broken connections. As you can see here with the sewer system, the elevation of the house and the basement make a major factor into how the basement can flood and what level of rain event is needed for the flooding to happen. You have a house that sits much higher than an adjacent house on a hilly road. Then when this sewer backs up, it's a much better chance that the sewage could go back up into the lateral into the house instead of this house. In this case, backflow preventers are installed. They're installed right behind the clean out, and it has a flapper gate right here that essentially acts so that water can only go one way towards the street, so that when it does back up, the flapper gate closes and it prevents flooding of the basement. So the Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works, they've installed 38 of these throughout different residences in the city of Beachwood over the last 5 years. But the city actually started their own contract last year and installed 49 of them. And Mr. Chris Arietta is going to talk a little bit more about backflow preventers.
Thank you, David. So I just wanted to take a moment before Dave continues on here on the presentation and just give a little more information about our backflow program. For the past several years, Beachwood has worked closely with the County Public Works Department to install backflow preventers in homes where multiple backups have occurred. And these have occurred where we've had a storm surcharge in our mains. So after severe storms that we had last year, we decided to, with the support of mayor and council, of course, to go out and to hire a contractor to expand this program so we could provide immediate assistance to 50 residents that had backups last year during these severe storms. By hiring an outside contractor, it helped us expedite this. And we had a successful program where we installed the 49 backflow preventers in this program. Now, I just wanted to take a second and touch base on the criteria that needed to be met to qualify for this program. A home must have experienced 2 backups in 2020, and the sewer lines on the resident side had to be free of any obstructions or any deficiencies to qualify for this program. This program with the outside contractor is still in place, and it runs through the end of 2021. So if we need to put additional backflows in over the next few months, we will definitely do that to help the residents. So I hope this shed a little bit of light on the program, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. DeCesar at this time.
Thank you. And as Chris alluded to, having multiple backups in the year, having the backflow preventers installed provides that immediate relief for known problem areas instead of having a large scale sewer project, which is what we're planning for. But in some of those areas where it's flooding repeatedly, that was the city's reaction to solving that problem. So. And as the mayor talked about in his introduction, there was an increase in high intensity rain events. So in March of 2020, actually March 29th, we had what's known as a 5-year event. So it rained almost 1.5 inches in 1 hour. In July 11th, there was a 10-year event. So it's 2.79 inches over 6 hours. On August 3rd, we had a 2-year event, which is 1.33 inches in 1 hour. And in Labor Day, the famous Labor Day event, it was actually almost a 50-year event. It rained 3.78 inches in 6 hours. That means that the frequency of that type of event should only happen once every that many years. So if it's a 25-year event, the probability of it happening based on all of the historical rainfall data, it should only be one every 25 years, one every 10 years, one every 50 years. Beachwood, in 2020 had 58.75 total inches of rain. So the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District has, I believe, 28 rain gauges in their entire network, and Beachwood's rain gauge was the second highest. So this is what a rain gauge looks like here. It's known as, it's called the tipping bucket. So water comes in the top, and there's a little apparatus that once it fills up, it kind of tips over and it counts as a click. Each click is so much inches, and then it just keeps, then it empties out the bottom. This is just a average rainfall over the last 12 years or so. You can see that the amount of high level rain events is a lot more in 2020 than, let's say, the early 2010s. So when we look at all the rainfall data and we see these major rain events, just knowing that it's raining doesn't mean we know how to solve the problem. And so we will install flow meters in the system. This is a typical flow meter setup where the logger sits in the manhole, and then the meter sits actually in the sewer pipe. This is a picture of a storm sewer that we had actually flow metered for the Glen Hill Storm Sewer Project, where the sensor sits in the bottom. It acts essentially based on the pressure that is pushed onto the sensor will tell you what the level of the water is in the pipe. So we use that to figure out where the problem areas are, and then also how to design in the future, what those improvements need to be. This is actually in the Glen Hill area where there's major flooding. These are some pictures from one of the homeowners here. And I also have a video from Green Bryden that I can show where there was flooding from August here. You can see there's kind of this sheet flow over the street from localized flooding, but it wasn't just localized flooding. What's happening is there's a culvert that runs underneath the intersection of Green Bryden, and the culvert was backed up. So then it backs up into the local sewers. You can see there's a manhole there, and there's a manhole farther upstream here where they had written that it was a geyser. There was more of like an air purging going on because the pipes were full and the water was going in and out of the culvert connection. Sorry. So this is a map from Labor Day. Any of the green, all of these little squares or rectangles are parcels. They're the different properties. And so all the service calls, the city received 194 service calls from different residents. And it was found, after they investigated it, the city and the county, they would go out and they go to the residences, they TV the lateral, they TV the main, and they find what was the problem there. So in 94 of those cases, it was found that the lateral, there was nothing wrong with the private homeowner's lateral, and it was more on the sewer main side in the street. There was 56 properties where they televised the lateral and the lateral was broken. The lateral had grease deposits, it had roots, other issues with that. And then there's 15 other non-related to the sewer. So if your basement had bad waterproofing and it was leaking through the walls, that's not necessarily a sewer issue, but they still called the city just to talk about it. So what this means is that there is an excess amount of stormwater, as we talked about before, those illicit connections, a lot of stormwater getting in from downspout connections into the sanitary lateral. And so it's not necessarily that the sanitary sewer capacity is undersized. It's just undersized for the amount of flow that's getting to it that shouldn't be getting to it. If you think about, there's a standard gallons per day of what each person uses, and that's how the sewers are designed. So when you have that standard plus a 25-year rain event, you're going to have basement backups. So what's been going on work-wise? So the Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works does work for the city of Beachwood, and there's tax dollars that go to them that they're using in the city. And in 2020, they had over 170,000 feet of sewer cleaning. That's both sanitary and storm sewers. It's about a 50-50 split. They had 159,000 feet of sewer inspection. They did 25 house calls, 158 construction jobs, 31 dye tests, and 454 catch basins that were cleaned. This was above average compared to the previous 5 years when you look at the annual reports, which are available on their website, on the county's website. So of those dollars that were spent, the maintenance of the sewer system was just over 844,000. Pump station operation and maintenance, 31,000. Engineering and or inspection cost was 56,000, and capital expenses for different repairs that were being done, it was just over 84,000. For just over $1 million that the county spent of the Beachwood money from that tax base. Also in 2020, the city of Beachwood Department of Public Works logged over 2,000 hours addressing those sewer related issues. So that would be going and looking at those flooding complaints, whether it's street flooding or basement flooding. There were issues, I want to say it was in May, where they actually had to shut the Green Bryden intersection down because of the flooding. So stuff like that, that's regular and overtime hours spent on investigating that incidents. So what the city and the county have done, they have done sewer rehabilitation. So that would include lining the existing sewers and also replacing the existing sewers on all of these streets. So a liner is essentially a balloon or a bag that gets inserted into the existing sewer, and it acts as a pipe within a pipe. That way you don't have to dig up the road. There are certain instances where you can do lining, but there are certain structural defects that if you have large sags in the pipe, the liner, it won't affect it. Or if the pipe is collapsed, then the liner can't get through and replacement is necessary. So another big project that was done was actually by the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, the Heights Hilltop Interceptor Local Sewer System Evaluation Study, which is the HHI-LSSES. So how the sewer district works is they have 3 treatment plants in the Northeast Ohio area, and there's 30-something communities that are tributary to those 3. Beachwood is primarily tributary to the Easterly plant, and this area is called the Heights Hilltop area. There's different interceptor areas that are being studied. So the Heights Hilltop interceptor area was studied mainly in the 2016-2017 timeframe, where they did flow monitoring, they did dye testing, smoke testing, camera work. They talked to all the different communities, and we talked and gathered the known problem areas to try to build a holistic model for these communities. But it was also planning level, because they obviously could not investigate every single pipe throughout their network. They're just trying to eliminate some of that inflow and infiltration into the system, because ultimately, whether it's flooding at the house or it goes to an overflow point or getting to the plant, it's less. They don't want to be treating rainwater. The storm sewers, you want them to outlet to the river or the lake. There's no sense in treating them at the treatment plant. So out of this study, there were potential solutions that were created for some of those high priority areas. And those solutions were prioritized into 3 tiers. So the first tier is known problems. So it's those community reported problems, basement backups, abbreviated BBU on there. So known basement backups, and known SSOs, which are sanitary sewer overflows, that are active during that 5-year rain event. A tier 2 is areas of excessive inflow and infiltration. So the separate over under common trench systems, sewage, stormwater, cross flow pollution, and difficult operation and maintenance areas. So when they did the smoke and dye testing, did they find that there was a lot of cross connect between the sanitary and the storm sewers? And then projected problems. So model predicted basement backups and flooded manholes that would have been based on that flow metering that was done. And then any of that sewage, stormwater, cross flow pollution as well, and aging infrastructure. Is the sewer system 30 years old or is it 100 years old? In some of the areas, it can be more than 100 years old. So we took, and this is what primarily the results of this is to address the sanitary sewer system side. They do not address the storm sewer side, but inherently the storm sewers will be somewhat addressed by getting the inflow and infiltration into the storm sewer network instead of the sanitary sewers. So using that and some of the known projects that the city has been kind of thinking about, we were tasked with creating a 5-year capital improvement plan. And so this is the list of projects just starting out strong in 2021, what we're going to do. And the first one was the Glen Hill Storm Sewer Project, which we had seen in the pictures from earlier. That actually did finish this month. They're doing some punch list items, but the contractor, we designed it, and then the contractor came in there and completed it pretty quickly. That was a low bid, was 131, just over 131,000. Next, we have the Beachwood Boulevard Storm Sewer. That design is in progress, and that estimated construction cost is about 1.2 million. That's going to be essentially a relief sewer for that general area, which we'll get into when I show the overall map here in a little bit. The Community Union Phase 2 Storm Sewer, that's also in design, and that's an estimated construction cost of 1.15 million. We have the Green Bryden Culvert Improvement. That design is also in progress, and that estimated construction cost is just under 1.3 million. And that project actually involves both the city of Beachwood and the city of Shaker, which I'll show on the map here in a little bit as well. And then the Timberlane Green Sanitary Relief Sewer, that design has not started, but flow metering for that will be getting started soon. In 2022, and potentially 2023, depending on additional funding from the sewer district that we're looking into, the Timberlane Green Sanitary Relief Sewer construction would start. And that cost is actually from the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District HHI study. There was a high level values put down kind of on a linear foot basis. We know it's 1.25 miles. They just assign a certain value per foot, and that's how the construction cost was. So that could be variance plus or minus 30%, but we think it would be lower than that on the lower the 30% side. Then the Bryden Road Sanitary and Storm Sewer design, that's also slated to start next year. That we cannot do until the Green Bryden culvert is complete, because the storm sewer connects to that culvert system. That estimated design fee is 567,000. And then in 2023, we'd have the construction of that Bryden Road Sanitary and Storm Sewer. This again is costs from that Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District HHI study. And that's just over 5.6 million. And then there would be the Halcyon Road Sanitary Sewer design. There's a lot of backups on that in that street. And then in 2024, we would have the construction of the Halcyon Road Sanitary Sewer. And that's if future modeling might prove that we don't actually have to do this project. And then in 2025, it's to be determined. We don't have any other projects that are slated right now. So I'm going to show here, this is an overall map here. So we have the Community Union Phase 2 Storm Sewer. It's going to be adding in storm sewers here on the western half, which will, because there's no storm sewers there now, a lot of that storm water is getting into the sanitary system and overloading it. And so it'll affect the sanitary sewer as it goes along Cedar, and it'll actually affect the Halcyon Road sanitary sewer, which is why this project might not be needed if we can get enough stormwater out of the Cedar Road sewer so that this is no longer backing up. This light blue area, this is for the Glen Hill and Beachwood Boulevard storm sewers. So right here was Glen Hill that was recently completed, but there's going to be a diversion right here that sends stormwater west towards Green Road and up to Cedar and then to the outfall. Right now, all of this whole stormwater, watershed flows north through the Glen Hill area. And so we're trying to divert that flow to alleviate some of that street flooding. This dark blue here is the Timberlane Green sanitary relief sewer. So it would relieve flow diversion from Halcyon, as well as here at Buckhurst, down Timberlane, then down Green, and it connects to one of the sewer district's main drop shafts for their tunnel, which then that tunnel eventually, from that map before, it was a purple line that went all the way to the treatment plant. This large yellow area here is the Green Bryden culvert improvements. So this line right here is actually the city limits with the city of Beachwood, or the city of Shaker Heights. And so it's about a 50-50 split. So when the construction of that goes underway, the cities will be splitting that cost, as well as we're looking at funding from the county and from the sewer district. And then we have the Bryden Road sanitary and storm sewer, where we have known and modeled surcharging or backing up basement flooding along this area where it's getting into people's basements, as well as from that video, you could see that the localized sewers were not handling the flow. But that's why once this culvert is fixed, as we're adding a second culvert to it, this can then be increased in size. So we also have to talk with the Canterbury Golf Course because it affects the downstream channel over here. There's multiple entities for the Green Bryden Culvert Improvement Project. And that's it for the presentation portion. I have some information here, contact information. We have the website for the Public Works Department. There's an email address that if you have general questions, they have the phone number for their overall office, and this is their office location. And I'm going to send it back over to the mayor.
Thanks, David, and thanks for a really concise presentation. At this point, we're going to take some questions and answer, and we'll try and have some answers. We'd like to try and go for about a half hour. We don't want to go much beyond 8 o'clock because we don't want to delay the president's speech. But how we're going to do this is we have two ways of doing it. If you're a participant, which is everybody except the 3 or 4 of us, you can go to a button on the bottom of your screen and it says raise hand. If you don't want to actually give us your question and get into a discussion, you can go to the Q&A section of your screen on the bottom and just type in a question. There is one comment already in the Q&A, and I just want to pass this over to Joe and David and see if you have any comments on this. It's not really a question. Donna Simmons writes, with climate change, you cannot assume that what was a 50-year event in the past will hold true in the future. She also writes, also the issue is not just the amount of rain, but the amount of pervious surface. So David or Joe, comments?
Yeah, it's true. It's not just the amount of rain. And part of the problem is that some of the lots, when you have some of these lots that have a small house there now, and then the house gets demolished, and then you have some larger house get there and a lot more downspouts added for that pervious or impervious area, then if the lateral is not fixed, then you'll have additional inflow and infiltration getting to the sanitary sewer system. As far as the 50-year event, so they actually do update what those statistics are continuously. There is like a known chart from, say, 20 years ago that most people use, but there is an agency that continuously does update what those events should be based on the rainfall totals. Now, I will say that, yes, you might have you can have a 50-year event today, and you can have another 50 event next week. We can't control that. But you don't want to make those statistics too high, because there's so many other non-major events that if you were to try to design everything to handle the 50-year event, the infrastructure would be so large, you physically wouldn't be able to do it. And same with the treatment plants. They can't handle a 50-year rain event. They never would be able to. And so that's why you have projects, green infrastructure, you have these trying to get the inflow and infiltration out from both the public side and the private side, doing sewer rehabilitation, sewer reconstruction, diversion structures and such.
Okay. I'm waiting to see if anybody raises their hand. So I don't see anybody raising their hand yet. I hope that function works. If not, if you want to just write in your question, we'll just read it on screen and someone can answer it. There's a question. Let's go to Harry Tate. Tina, can we get Harry up? Harry, let's turn off the mute and you can ask your question. There you
All
go.
right.
Hi, Harry.
Okay, my question is this. Where does East Groveland fall on all the improvements? Are we part of the Glen Hill Beachwood Boulevard fix? And is that going to take care of East Groveland? That's the first part of my question. And the second part is numerous people that I know have had these backflow repairs put in and they don't work. They get more water than places that haven't had them. So that's my two-part question. East Groveland and these backflow repairs that don't work.
Okay. Thanks, Harry. We'll let Joe answer that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. East Groveland is going to be helped by both the Beachwood Boulevard storm sewer improvements and the one at Glen Hill. But and I don't know if you know this, but I mean, Chris, did they start? The county has a large project on East Groveland this year that they're going to do. They're replacing sewers. They had TV'd the sewers. They found several problems with it. They're going to be digging them up with point repairs, not 800 feet of sewer, but there's several point repair areas where they have to do that. That's going to happen this year. I thought they may have even started already, but I don't think they've started yet. Chris would know.
Joe, if I could just jump in, yes, they have completed some lining down there.
Yes.
So they're in progress, and that project is going to help East Groveland residents. Definitely going to help that area.
Sure. Well, as far as a backflow preventer not working, I mean, Chris, myself, I mean, David, we could go take a look at it. I don't know what the issue is there. I mean, it's obviously, maybe it's stuck, maybe it needs to be cleaned. You know, there's several reasons why it wouldn't work, but generally, you know, those things only let water go one direction. There's a flap there, or a gate that closes. You shouldn't have backup after you put one of those in, if it's installed properly, if it's maintained. But it'd be an individual case. We'd have to look at it.
Okay. Let's go back for a second to a question from Donna Simmons. Why not allow French drains for garages to reduce the demand for stormwater, to reduce the stormwater capacity? Chris, Joe?
I think that's a code issue, Mayor. I don't think you're allowed to do French drains and let the garage drains go into a storm sewer. If your car is parked in there and has some oil in it or something, you know, some kind of dripping from whatever on your car, I mean, those are supposed to be connected to the sanitary sewers. Now, not all of them are connected connected that way, especially some of the older homes. We can't do anything about it. But as far as something in the garage, it should be attached to your sanitary sewer.
Okay.
And that's a code issue.
Yeah, I think it is a code issue. And a question from Valerie Matthews. It is my understanding that a storm line will be installed along Cedar Road as part of the Community Union project. Can you confirm and elaborate how far east it will extend? Further, what is the expected completion date? Joe, do you know that one?
That is correct. A new storm sewer and new sanitary sewer will be installed from community there. I don't know how many feet it is. It goes toward Richmond Road, but there's a high point short of Richmond Road where Cedar then slopes toward Richmond. All right, that already has sewer over there. We're taking it all back going toward the west. I'd be happy to plan what it is. I don't know how many feet it is, but we will be getting a new storm and a new sanitary sewer. And to be honest with you, I don't think we have a storm sewer there. There's yard drains that some of the residents have put in over the years, but there's not an official sewer in that location that we know of. There's old drain tile and there's some old from the 2030s that were there that, to be honest with you, we don't think they're working anymore. And that's why we're doing this project.
Okay. Let's go to a question from Gail Heiser. Let's put her up on the screen. And Gail, if you'll unmute yourself and ask your question. Thanks.
You muted yourself.
I did not, it's unmuted.
No, you're,
Hi.
go ahead.
Hi, we've had the backflow valve at our installed, it was about 5 years ago. And we've had them check it at least, they've checked it at least twice. And they said they were clean and clear and everything. And we've still had water at least 3 or more times. That backflow valve does not work.
We're at the corner.
And we're at the corner of East Groveland and Linway.
Who installed? Well, I don't care who installed it. Was there a dye test?
County.
Pardon me?
The county?
The county? Did they dye test ahead of time that?
Yeah, they've done everything.
So I'd just like to ask a question here. You said it was installed 5 years ago?
Well,
Was that
maybe
accurate?
A little less, maybe a little less.
Maybe
Less than 5 years?
I don't know.
somewhere around five
And they-
5 to 7 years ago.
Yeah. And they came out, about a year ago and checked it, and they said there was nothing wrong with it. And our pipes were good and everything, and it just it happens.
So you had water coming up through the basement then, through the
Correct.
basement drains? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'd like to revisit this and take a look and see what we can find. If I could just get your address, we could get in contact with you tomorrow, and we
Okay.
could reevaluate and take a look at it.
It's 23702 East Groveland.
Very good. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Chris will check it out. More questions. Donna Simmons has another question. My neighbor's garage gutters drain onto my property. What can I do to make this stop?
It's almost a building department issue, Mayor. I'm not sure. I mean, that really shouldn't happen. We do not allow it if we know about it. Your gutters should drain onto your own property and into your own storm laterals or storm sewers. We don't allow one neighbor to dump onto another neighbor like that. Again, it'd be an individual thing. We'd have to come out there and look at it. But that isn't allowed by code.
Donna, if you would call our office at 292-1901 tomorrow, we'll put you through to the building department, or just call the building department at 292-1914, and we'll have somebody check it out. Okay. Other questions? I don't see any hands. Chris, can you talk for a second about what People ask me often after a storm, they say, oh, I had called my plumber and my plumber cleaned out the lines and, why doesn't the city do anything? Can you talk about the procedure of how to reach the city on a weekend or in an evening or when there's a bad storm, and how many crews we have out and how many calls we can handle, and the kind of the length of distance that our crews will go to try and clear those lines?
Sure, Mayor. When we do have these storm events, and a resident does experience a backup, it's important that they contact the Public Works Department. If we do have severe rainfall, we do have 2 crews that we dispatch out, and we handle the calls as they come in to the department. So if you give us a call, we'll be more than happy to stop out. We will go ahead and we will locate your Ts. We will expose those Ts and we will inspect both lateral lines, storm and sanitary, and see if there's anything there that is blocking the water from getting out. And we will go ahead and clean those lines out on the resident side, especially if there's a backup in the basement. So we do have 2 crews that we dispatch, and they do a great job of servicing the homes where needed. So please call our number. If it's an off hour, we do check the voicemails. We do get the voicemails. If it's an emergency, you can always call the non-emergency police number, and we will also be in contact with them when there's bad storms.
Okay, if they call dispatch, basically dispatch can reach you if it's a weekend or an evening and it's a bad storm.
That's correct. That's correct. If we do have a bad storm, we are checking our voicemails.
And we're working pretty much 24 hours in a bad storm.
24/7, yes.
Okay, it's good information. All right, any other questions? Any other comments? All right, well, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to write our office or call our office. We'll get some answers from David or Joe or Chris. I hope this was helpful. We tried to reduce it down to its simplest elements and let you know what the city is doing, which is really quite remarkable because we really haven't addressed this problem for many, many years in this kind of comprehensive way. I personally want to thank council for the tremendous support last year in addressing the problem and saying we are going to commit some money and some effort and try and turn this around. So in another 3 or 4 years, perhaps we can eliminate 90 to 95 to 100% of our complaints with basement water flooding. We take this very seriously. If we have 100 complaints of flooded basements on a bad storm, and you figure that could be $10,000 worth of damage, that's almost $1 million worth of damage to residents' homes in one afternoon. So it's important to us to get all this corrected within a reasonable time. So if there are no other questions, I want to thank David and Joe and Chris. I want to thank Tina Turek for producing this evening, directing, Lynn Johnson for marketing this project, and Craig Kaufman for all the technical support. Craig's in charge of our IT department and helped us work through this whole Zoom process so we can take questions. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the participants and everybody who viewed this tonight. And again, if there's any other questions or any way the city can help you, please call us and we're here to serve. Thanks again. Good evening.